The Sump Sea is no place for swimmers. When gangs explore the Necromundan Sump Seas, a boat is always necessary. So join me as I build and paint 2 Sump Boats, and this time on JD and the Sump Sea. Welcome back to JD and the Sump Sea. I'm Jay, and today I'm building sump boats for Necromunda. And if you like assembling miniature seafaring vessels of questionable origin, then perhaps you should bust out that warhammer and smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so you don't miss any of our videos. Editor Jay here, and no, you're not crazy. That footage was shot at the old house. Same with the outro footage. I just thought I'd keep it in. Anyway, back to the show. I wish I had a picture of this boat before I started working on it, but I don't think I ever took one. Both this boat and the next boat I found at Goodwill for just a couple of dollars each. I found them both on the same day several years ago. I just never got around to converting them up much until now. This first boat I'd begun modifying, but I never finished. I added these old Games Workshop ruined building pieces and some plasticard, and then last year at Adepticon I found the platformer box and I finally decided to use it on this boat. I immediately cut off the grill piece and then cut off the nubs on the corners and glued it down to the platform on the top of the boat. I glued down this old orc backpack to add some details. You know, maybe the captain kept his ammo or other personal effects in this backpack, who knows? Then I went back to the platformer sprue and cut off these L-shaped pieces and put them around the back. On top of the L-shaped pieces, I added some square panels to make a platform for models to stand on. These pipe pieces I cut out and glued together and used as a smokestack for the boat. I like to think of these vehicles as old and beat up and very low-tech because low-tech is easier to maintain, so this is probably a boat that runs on coal or the equivalent. I kept adding details from the platformer box and put platforms along the sides of the boat so more models could fit on the boat. I wanted the boat to be able to transport an entire gang, so I needed to model it to actually accommodate like 12 models. I added a few more details, including more smokestacks in the back and ablative armor plating along the front 2 sides, and then decided I needed to spray it so I could really see it all as one piece. After spraying it, I added the Life Preserver 3D prints that Ty from iPaint Small Things gave me. I then used Sterlen Mud, the GW Technical paint, to add texture to the model. I wanted it to be grimy as heck before I started painting it in earnest. I also added the harpoon launcher in the front so it had a weapon. I started by cutting out the parts of the toy boat that I didn't particularly like or that I didn't think would fit the new aesthetic I was going for. This was kind of a futuristic looking boat toy and I wanted it to be junky looking. I wanted to reinforce the raised deck I was going to add to the boat by using these wooden mini Jenga blocks. It was a knockoff toy that I found at the dollar store. Once I had the blocks glued in place, I started cutting down some plasticard to fit. It took some trial and error, but I eventually got it in there. I was using wood glue at this point in the build, and I realized at some point that was not really the best glue to be using, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. These plastic grill pieces are from the Pegasus Hobbies Power Plant kit. I found a box of the platformer and the power plant at last year's Adepticon, as I said earlier, and I knew that I had to buy them. The railings are from the Pegasus Hobbies platformer kit. I made the engine and smokestack assembly from the power plant kit, and the ladder is assembled from the platformer kit. I had to add a new elevated floor to the interior of the cabin as well, so I cut out some more plastic card. This boat was a larger scale than Necromunda, so I had to adjust it by changing where the floors were and by adding the shorter railings and the rest of the detail work that you'll see later. I kept trying to glue down the floors and the interior of this cabin with Elmer's glue, and it just wasn't working. I finally busted out the hot glue gun and things actually started sticking. I made the front deck basically with the same method as the rear deck, with the same Jenga pieces under it to give it strength and stability and to raise it to the correct height. Then I thought about how this is an old, out-of-date, junky boat that had been on the sump for a long time and has seen some fights, so I thought about what might that mean as to how that would make the boat look. I thought a ramshackle, orky look would be great for this model, with panels just stuck all over it acting as ablative armor, so I started cutting out cardboard and plastic card panels and gluing them to the hull. Similar to what I did with the first boat. I kept adding more and more detail and used more of the platformer and power plant pieces. I added a hatch on the front deck, imagining that maybe there was a storage area below the deck. I also repurposed some of those parts I cut off of the original toy. I wanted the roof to have a platform where a sniper could lurk, and also at least one side of the boat had to have a walkway so that the passengers could get from the front to the back. I assembled the deck board and steering wheel of the boat outside of the cabin and used, again, the platformer and power plant kits as the basis. These fantastic Life Preserver 3D prints were designed, printed, and given to me by iPaint Small Things, and they're so great for this build and for any dock or boat in the sump. Thank you, iPaint Small Things. Make sure you check out his channel if you haven't already, link in the description below. From here, it's just more and more detail. These sorts of models look better the more junk is plastered on them. I bought these little half-circle pearls from Michaels to be used as rivets with the little dab of super glue. They were a great way to add an explanation as to how those plates were attached to the boat. I then used some green stuff, an Orlock harpoon launcher, and a couple of magnets and made this thing sticking out of the front deck useful. Now the boat had a gun that was magnetized, so I could swap it out during a campaign. The last step before painting was using a mix of sand, Mod Podge, and water, and covering the whole model with it to give it some good texture. I also added some GW Sterling mud, technical texture paint into a lot of the crevices and onto other various parts of the boat. I wanted this thing to look really grimy and really gross. I started painting my boat by laying down some black base coat, or in this case, Lethal Shadows primer black paint on all of the parts that I wanted to be metallic. I found out about Lethal Shadows paint at 2025's Adepticon, and I find their fluorescence and their black and white primer to be pretty good. In hindsight, maybe I should have just sprayed the whole thing black instead of doing a Zenithal base coat with black and white spray paint. I then used Army Painter's dark rust on various areas of the boat that I wanted to look rusty. It's too dark of a paint to be used by itself, so I then used Army Painter's fresh rust and did a heavy dry brush over the dark rust and over some other spots on the boat as well. I then used Army Painter's ivory white from the John Blanche set on the pontoons of the boat, the life preservers, and most of the armor panels. Army Painter's heavy metal would be my main metal color, also from the John Blanche set. I then dry brushed it over pretty much all of the black areas I had painted earlier and over parts of the rust colored areas, making sure I left some of the rust color exposed to show that the metal was indeed rusting. I then started using various bright colors to paint the armor panels, including Warcolor's Hawk Turquoise from their Nostalgia 94 line. I then also used Huge Miniatures fluorescent colors, Cyber Pink, Pulsewave Pink, Photon Purple, Quantum Green, and Laser Orange. And if you like these fluorescent colors from Huge Miniatures, you can go to the Badger Games website at badgergames.com and order them online. They can be shipped anywhere in the world, and if you use our code JD2026 on your purchase, you'll really help out our channel. I also used more Warcolors paints, including Lich Purple and Blood Red on the panels. I used Warcolor's Nostalgia 94 Sunburst Yellow to paint the pontoons to get that good bright yellow color that I was looking for. I used Huge Miniatures Laser Orange to paint the front pontoon on the boat. I switched back to Lethal Shadows paints and used their white primer to repaint the life preservers to make sure that they were very bright white. I used more heavy metal from Army Painter to hit some more metal areas that I missed before, like this side panel. I then used the Laser Orange from Huge Miniatures again for the 4 stripes on the life preservers. I wanted to go over parts of the boat again with more rust, so I used Fresh Rust again from Army Painter and hit specific areas that I thought needed more detail, like around the rivets on the armor panels. I used more Warcolors paints to paint the blue of the displays in the control panel and to paint some of the buttons on that control panel in the pilot's area of the boat. I wanted the boat to look grungier, so I then applied Army Painter's Voodoo Shade all over the boat from the pontoons to the smokestack. I used the Darkness, which is from Army Painter's John Blanche set, and I mixed it with some white to make it a little bit lighter. I then painted the armor right at the top of the pilot's area in the front to give it a nice dark blue look. I was almost done now. I just needed a bit more grungying up of the boat. I used Stirland Mud to add more texture to some spots to begin this grungying up. I then opened up my pot of Nazdrag Yellow and painted the front pontoon. Once the Stirland Mud was dry, I dry brushed it with Fresh Rust. One more step to really grunge up the boat, I took Typhus Corrosion from Games Workshop and I added some Nazdrag Yellow to it. I then watered that down a bit and painted the pontoons with it and added it to areas of the deck and some other spots on the boat, just to make it look like there was gunk all over it. And with that, I was done. I have to say I'm pretty happy with how this first boat turned out. It looks really grimy and rusty, and just like you would expect a boat that's been traveling through the Sump Sea for years to look like. The life preservers really add to the look of both of these boats, and also a 40mm base actually locks into the grating in front of the control panel perfectly. This second boat was painted by my partner and they did a heck of a job. I was at work and came home and it was all done. The rust looks convincing and I really like the blue, which is like another color of corrosion. I really wish that I could have gotten some footage of this paint job happening, but it just didn't work out. I stuck with less colors on my first boat, but this paint job really shows what can be done by using colors that one wouldn't necessarily expect. I took some video of these boats with my Sump Pirate gang led by Bullflay the Ogrin because I wanted to show how they look with models actually on them. In the current Necromunda rules, vehicles are treated like terrain in that you move a fighter around them like you would any other piece of terrain. The main difference is when the vehicle moves, each model has to basically make an initiative check or fall off. An upgrade to the vehicle would be the transport bed. It's an optional upgrade that allows the models on the bed to be able to be transported by the vehicle without them falling off when it moves. So I made both of these boats with big enough transport beds to transport about 10 models, or about the size of a regular Necromunda gang. Something I love about Necromunda is the WYSIWYG rule, or what you see is what you get, and I sure hope that that unofficial rule stays in the new edition. But enough about unofficial rules, let's talk about the actual rules for these boats and how I play with them in games of Necromunda. We started a Sump Sea Perpetual campaign back a couple of months ago, and my buddy Benjamin of Purp Miniatures fame, check out his YouTube channel, it has amazing conversions in it, came up with a campaign rule set, and he has updated the vehicle rules to apply to boats, which he's made some custom rules for as well. He came up with a PDF covering all of it, but I'm going to go over just the basics here. All vehicles will now drift at the start of each round if they had moved in the previous turn and if they aren't tied off. More on the tied off mechanic in a minute. Drifting is D3 inches for mounted light and scrap skiffs, and D6 inches for medium, heavy, and sludge barges. So tie-off is a simple action and can be performed by anyone on the boat if the boat is within 1 inch of a terrain feature or another boat. And if you do this action, then it will prevent drifting of that boat. So another big change is that the boats also don't have crew like regular vehicles. A fighter on the boat may perform a crew double action. This crew action allows you to then immediately perform up to 2 vehicle actions. This can only happen once per boat per round. The jury-rigged rule is also suspended, so it's not such a pain to repair vehicles during the campaign. Also, boats do not roll on the vehicle dice every time they fail a save. Instead, once the boat goes to 0 hull points, you roll a regular injury die. It's -1 toughness in every spot on the vehicle if you get a flesh wound. A serious injury counts as stationary and stalled, and out of action is a roll on the lasting damage table for the boat. There are a few other new rules as well, but I won't go over those here. The ones I just mentioned are by far the most interesting and impactful of the new boat rules he created, in my humble opinion. The first boat that I made, the Dauntless, has the following profile. He made some new profiles for vehicles. This is a medium vehicle with some upgrades. I added the extra armor, so it's toughness 6 all around, and gave it a harpoon launcher, which I think is fitting for a sump boat. Improved rudder for +1 handling is always good, and nitro burners for +1 inch of movement is also something I find almost required when building vehicles of all types. The transport bed is of course a must too, if you want anyone on the boat to stay on it once it starts moving. You will note the second boat, the Brawler, is a heavy vehicle, and so it starts at toughness 7 all around. I kept this without upgrading it, just to compare the difference in toughness in practice with the 2 boats. This boat also has a harpoon launcher, a transport bed, nitro burners, and improved rudder, just like the other boat. However, I gave this one flare launchers, since in the Sump campaign most weeks we play with somewhat limited visibility. Well, thanks for watching me build and paint some Sump boats for Necromunda. I had a great time, and I hope you enjoyed watching me build and paint these boats and my process. Hopefully I inspired you to go out and try and build your own boats. But have you already built boats for Necromunda, or are you planning on building boats for Necromunda? I'd love to know what you think about what I did, and I'd like to read all your thoughts in the comments below. But that's all I've got for you this time. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like and subscribe.